we thought that this would be a great idea to have a showcase of what you learned in the workshop as like your next phase of practice. And we hope that you'll find this very useful and not get too stressed about it, because it's not a formal presentation and we're all friends here and we're just all very excited to hear about your stories. We think that communication is very hard and it's very, but it's extremely important to accomplish all the goals that we want to accomplish in scholarship, research, and certainly in the projects that we do across disciplines, with community members, etc. So we really appreciate your investing your time and effort in developing this skill. So the way it's going to work today is I have a list of names, and if there are other people who didn't sign up but have decided that they want to speak, we'll have time for that too. So we're going to have everybody present in alphabetical order by their first names. And remember to say your name as part of the story. And we have this mic for the room, and then this mic is for the camera. So if you have a nice projecting voice and don't feel you need the handheld, that's the one to go for. Use this one instead. Okay, and then it's about up to a 3-minute talk.
We all make decisions. Some of those decisions are more important than others. It's October 15th, and Charles heads out his door. He walks into his fields, kicking up dust. He gazes upwards. Mount Kenya is on the horizon. The sun's rising. Doesn't look like much rain. He takes his phone out of his pocket. He types a text message. No rain, did not plant, and send. It's with these text messages that I understand the decisions that smallholder farmers make to cope with the impact of climate variability. 95% of farmers in sub-Saharan Africa are reliant on rainfall for their agriculture. They make various decisions. These decisions are more important than some of the ones we make. These decisions, their livelihoods depend on. I ask farmers about these decisions. I ask them when they plant, when they irrigate, what seeds they pick, what crops they plant. They text me back. I compare these decisions with a vast array of climate data. I compare them with precipitation, with temperature, with humidity. This allows me to understand the decisions that farmers make and how they can prepare for the future of climate and climate variability. With ever increasing impacts of climate change, it's increasingly important to understand these decisions and how we can best prepare farmers to cope with climate extremes. Charles walks out into his fields again. It's still dusty, and he looks up at Mount Kenya again. Some clouds are brewing. He takes out his phone. He's received another text message. Rain is coming, time to plant. My name is Andy Zimmer. I'm a geography PhD student, and I text farmers.
So there was a little girl, and she lived in Dayton, Ohio with her brothers and sisters. And her oldest brother was her idol, 7 years older than her. She went everywhere with her older brother. They went to the record store together, and he didn't have any problems taking her along. As the years progressed and he got older, he turns 15 years old. And the little girl is really excited that the older brother is having a birthday party. She's ready to be a part of it. She's like, I'm in on this. But as 15-year-olds do, no little sisters allowed, right? So, but as little sisters do, she sits up on the top of the steps while her brother is getting ready for the party and watches all of the other 15, 16-year-olds come into the living room. She's perched up on the top step, and kind of disappointed because she realizes teenagers aren't really that social. The girls were on one side of the room, the boys on the other side of the room, and what stood in the middle was a big, empty dance floor. The girls do their talking, the boys do their talking, and then something miraculous happens. The song Strawberry Letter 22 by the Brothers Johnsons come on. The dance floor begins to fill. The girls come to the middle shaking their hips. The boys know every word to every song. And that happens. And the little girl realizes she wants to be a part of that. That filling of the dance floor, that thing that happens when people find commonality, when people find something that brings them together and bonds them together. Flash forward a few years, that little girl joins the Peace Corps. That little girl becomes a photojournalist. That little girl becomes a community builder. That little girl was me. That little girl knew that moment of her 15-year-old brother's birthday party that she wanted to be a part of creating that thing that brings people together. I am now the Community Impact Fellow, the first ever Community Impact Fellow at the University of Arizona College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. My job is to build community in the historically segregated Dunbar Pavilion located in Dunbar Spring neighborhood. And so I have unconsciously used that experience to guide everything that I've done in my life and my career. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Erin Deely. I'm going to ask you to imagine a time when you had to wait for one night a week to see your favorite TV show. And mine was Wild Kingdom on Sunday night. That was the best night of TV. And that's also when National Geographic specials would happen, which my hero was Jacques Cousteau and his travels through the ocean and all the new exploration that was happening. It was on our screen in our home. And I really wanted someday to be a marine biologist. All my birthday gifts were National Geographic books about sharks and whales and dolphins, and I couldn't wait to see a career someday in marine biology. And I did well in school, in science and math, and I had two great biology teachers, Mrs. Rydell Hoover, who channeled my insatiable curiosity and question into being actually an assistant in her second class. In her first class, I took the class, and I loved dissection, and I just had so many questions and loved it so much. And you can imagine you might be one of those people in the room, dissection, ew. I was the one like, ooh. And so she let me spend the second class explaining everything to my peers. And then my track coach and biology teacher encouraged me to take a harder math. She saw some potential in me and wanted to encourage me to pursue science. So I started to see myself as a scientist. And so when I was talking to my parents about going to college, my dad, the practical engineer, said, well, marine biology is kind of a hobby. That's not a career. And so, he was wise. I took his advice, and so I decided to become a doctor and do the biology track in college. And as I was taking the chemistry, physics, and biology, I enjoyed the classes, but I got to take a marine biology class, and they actually took us to Mexico and walked the tide pools. And I aced that class. I was so excited to be in it. And I got an opportunity to be an undergraduate teaching assistant. So I led the tide pool walks and kept the aquariums. And I started to see that this is a potential career. And then I took the other classes, herpetology, ornithology, all the field classes. And I decided I want to be a field biologist, and I want to explore the world's biomes. So I decided I need to do research. So I got into an ant lab. Yep, ants. And learned the importance in our food chain and agriculture through doing work with ants. And then I spent a summer doing field research in the Chiricahua Mountains, all the different biomes. And what I found was my dream job wasn't a good fit for me. I found field work to be monotonous, and the burning questions didn't burn in me, but I most enjoyed explaining to other people about the research and what I got to be exposed to. So here I was, getting ready to graduate, and kind of had a crisis of identity. What am I going to do? I don't want to pursue research. And so my dad's in my ear saying, yeah, what are you going to do for a job? Well, luckily enough, I did find a place. I got to teach marine biology on Catalina Island, Marine Institute for all school-aged kids. I did a stint in the Peace Corps working in communities with coffee and dairy farmers and conservation. And I came back and got to work at Tucson Audubon Society as Education Director and Nature Center Director. And today I'm lucky and find myself helping students and families make a decision and guide their path in becoming scientists as a recruitment director for the College of Science. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Fiona. You should probably know this one thing about me. I really like books. I really like reading. In fact, I like books so much that, yeah, I kind of read online a bit, but I like books. Anyone else here really like books and reading? Whoops, I should stop. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? You're the people that go into the bookstores, actual bookstores, okay? And it took me a while to figure this out about myself, but I really like organizing things. And this is not apparent if you look at my house. But it turns out in my work, I like things to be organized. The bits I can control, not my house, right? And one of the things that's interesting about this to me is that it turns out the kind of work I do is about organizing. It's not organizing books, I should be that lucky. But what it's doing is I spend a lot of time thinking about how to organize data, and particularly biological data. And this has been really cool and exciting because in the last few years, we started to collect more and more data. And so my job has got harder and harder. And it also means good job security because people say, well, when are you going to be done with that? Well, never. Okay. This is why I like what I do. I love what I do because I get to organize things and I get to do it in a way where there's no one else really thinking about how to do this. And so I get to make stuff up as well. And you don't, many people don't think of scientists being creative people, but I love books, I love organizing things, I love being creative. These things all tie in. And the data that I take and organize helps other researchers, other scientists to really understand what they're doing with their research. So I get to help people as well. So I get to organize things. I get to be really creative, but not that creative. And I get to help people. And as I'm helping other researchers, here's what I'm doing. I'm hearing about what they're doing, so I get to learn all the cool new stuff that everyone else is doing, which is really, really fun. So you put this all together, the organizing, the creativity, the helping people, and you put that all together, and what I do is called bioinformatics. And for those of you who know what bioinformatics is, this is not something you initially associate with someone doing bioinformatics. You tend to think of more someone who's stuck in the corner of the room refusing to come out if there's other people there. So this, you know, when people know bioinformatics and they know me, they sort of wonder how I ended up here. But this is kind of how I ended up here. And it's not something that I started to do. But it has been a lot of fun, and I want to keep on doing it as long as I can. Thank you.
The first time I visited Tucson, I was 7 years old. I still remember my mom driving her brand new bright red Volkswagen Beetle. My sister and I in the back seat, glued to the windows. Eyes wide open and jaws dropped in amazement. Tucson, the big city in front of us. Well, you need to understand that for a kid who was born and raised in a small city, in a small Mexican city close to the border, Tucson was a big deal. So later that day, we went back to Hermosillo, and I couldn't talk about anything else but my trip to Tucson. So I told my cousins about it, I told my classmates about it, I told my friends at the barrio about it, and they couldn't believe what I told them. And I must admit that perhaps I went too far describing the tall buildings in Tucson, the wide roads in Tucson, and the big bridges in Tucson. But who doesn't when you're a kid, right? So anyway, the seed was planted in me, and I wanted to do something. So I wanted to pave the better roads in Hermosillo, and I wanted to build bridges to connect those roads in Hermosillo. And that's why I became a civil engineer. But destiny can be tricky. So I was given the opportunity to work with community groups in Mexico. So suddenly I was just there leading workshops with high school teachers and students. I was meeting with these housewives in Ejido Campodónico, and I was attending fishermen's assemblies in Rocky Point. And the dream of building bridges got lost somehow. But I love my work. So, well, time went on, and I got married, and I moved to Tucson 3 years ago. Now I needed to find a job here in Tucson. But I wanted to keep working with community groups. And I mean, the big city of my childhood, what needs could possibly have? It turned out that there are a lot of needs here too, just like in Mexico. So the Haury program gave me the opportunity to work with community groups here too. And it feels good. So once in a while, I picture myself in the back seat of my mom's Beetle, and I'm thinking about those bridges that I couldn't, build, but I like to think about that I'm building bridges to connect people. So, well, my name is Hiram Peña. I'm a project coordinator for the Haury program, and I build bridges to connect people. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jason Aragon. I'm the media specialist for Native Nations Institute. Native Nations Institute's here at the university. It's a public service unit. You might not have heard of it, but they've been taking decades of research around indigenous governance and work directly with tribes in the U.S. to strengthen their capacity to do self-governance, indigenous governance, build better communities. So what does that mean for me as the media specialist? I get to stay in an office all day and play with camera equipment and toys and not go out in the field and make videos and take photos of great Native leaders doing great work and have my kind of little cave to do my stuff, right? But occasionally I do get out, and on one of those occasions, myself and other staff have organized and coordinated a youth program with Native Nations Institute. We call it Project Youth Project Youth Agents of Change Within Tribes, or Project Youth Act. What it basically is we take high school age Native youth and they come here to the university where they get 3 days of media training and advocacy training on issues they care about, dealing with social justice and environment, and they can take that training and they can use it in their own communities. And what I do is I teach them, what I know, learning how to make videos or telling stories digitally, kind of taking those skills and bringing it through the great research and work that NNI does. They get to teach them about strengthening indigenous governance and community building. So, I get out of the office, get to see the sunlight sometimes, do this with the youth. But there's something interesting that happened on one of these workshops. One of the students, Lulu, she came in really excited, really, wanting to participate and come up with a great idea for herself. And the first 2 days, just, really energetic and active. And on the third day, she hit a block, real writer's block. She just was like, I don't know what to do. I don't have an idea. I can't think of anything. What do I do? And I went to Lulu and I said, you know what, just put away the computers, all the stuff. Let's just get a paper and a pencil and just start writing things down, things you care about. ideas, thoughts, or words, or even just pictures. Just write down on a piece of paper. And she finished, and she got to present her idea, project at the end. It was a hashtag campaign. It was good to see that she finished, but I knew she was really excited to come up with something like a big video or something that she could feel proud of. And I wasn't quite sure the impact we're having. Are we making a difference with these youth? Are they going to take these skills or do anything? Or is it just going to kind of sit with them those 3 days and never be used for anything? Well, flash forward about a year later. I'm with my wife for a Saturday night. We come home, it's 10 o'clock. We come home early nowadays. We're getting older. So I just sit down on the couch and I click on the TV, and it's the 10 o'clock news. And right there on the TV is Lulu. And Lulu's there being on camera interviewed at the TUSD school board meeting, advocating for herself and other Native students to wear their traditional regalia at their high school graduation ceremony because the dress code will allow them to do that. And I just sit there like, wow, I guess something's working. And it made me realize, that Project Youth Act, the idea was to create future change makers for Native youth in Native communities, helping with Native Nations Institute to strengthen that Indigenous governance. But we're making change makers right here, right now, and that's why I love what I do. Thank you.
So once upon a time, I studied why butterflies have beautiful wings. Turns out it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll, if you're curious, but we're going to move on from that. I was in the field collecting data. Now, this research took me all over the world. In this case, though, I was in Florida. And I was knee-deep in mud in the swamp, chasing after these butterflies. There's many sites that I had 8 sites that I went to. And that summer, though, all 8 of them were hit by one of 4 hurricanes. It leveled my sights. Now, this is not great for a graduate student. It instilled an immense amount of panic and maybe a few words of profanity, more than a few. However, in that moment, when I was sitting in the swamp looking at the devastation in the environment around me, I realized something, which is that climate change was going to have a huge impact, not only on the people I loved, but also the animals I loved. And from that, I started to think about what I was doing and how I could leverage it to help these animals through this very difficult time moving forward. And I sat there and I thought, and I thought. And my one pain point there was that I would need data that I couldn't collect by myself. I would need thousands, if not millions, of data points. Well, there's only one of me. But it turns out, as a scientist and as a rather gregarious person, I know a lot of people who, for fun, go out and take pictures of butterflies. But we didn't have a way to communicate. We didn't have a way to organize what we were doing. And so from that, I started just cruising on the internet, and then I had an epiphany. The tool I was using could bring us together. So what I did was I actually, in collaboration with others, built an application and a web platform where us crazy butterfly enthusiasts could go out, take pictures, record what we saw and when we saw it. And in that, I built this the platform's called eButterfly, and it has over 5,000 users at this point in time, and over about 500,000 data points of North American butterflies. Now, with that data, what we're doing is we're taking that data and we're taking our knowledge of how butterflies make a living, and we're making predictions of what they'll do and where they'll be in the future. And hopefully that will inform the conservation decisions that we're making now and in the future. So in reflecting on this, it turns out that catastrophe can be the mother of invention. If you sit down, wrestle with it, and think about it, on how to leverage what's good for you and the things you love.
So, who in here likes learning? Okay, so you guys can all participate in this next activity now that we've established that. I want you to, if you are willing, to close your eyes. If not, it's okay. Please look down, soften your gaze, if you will. But think about the time that made you passionate about the things you love. Was it a person? Was there a certain instance? Was there an opportunity that you had, maybe in school, maybe it was with your parents at a museum, or something that really made you pay attention to the thing that you are super passionate about now? Does that bring you joy? Make you smile a little? Okay, we can open up our eyes again. The reason that you're passionate about those things is because someone was able to articulate to you something cool and fascinating about them. You saw them, you thought they were beautiful. I'm going to use Erin's example of the wildlife and the nature, Jacques Cousteau on TV and thinking about the ocean. Debbie, I know, where's Debbie? Debbie was talking about an opportunity where she was able to see social interactions and bridging of people together. Those kinds of instances really change who we are. Here at the U of A, we have a program for graduate students called the UA Carson Scholars Program. And the Carson Scholars Program's goal is to help graduate students and students in areas of study across disciplines at the U of A in areas of social justice and environmental justice articulate the research that they're doing in a meaningful way. Why am I passionate about this? The opportunities that I've had growing up come a lot from my mother, who is a science teacher. And she opened up my eyes to all of these wonders of science that I could never even, we had so many like reptiles and lizards and different kinds of animals in my house growing up. And I had so many opportunities to follow along with her when she would take her students on field trips and get to experience the world through the life of a biology teacher. So that was really cool. So this is important to me. The reason that I'm here in this position now is because science education and science articulation is very important. The ability to communicate what you're doing to people who really don't know, but can also ignite a passion within them is very important. So when you're out there and you're doing your research or you're doing your work, if it's not exactly research, think about the ways that you can articulate and make connections with people. Maybe like Debbie, bringing people together. Or maybe like Erin, really getting people excited about the things that the College of Science has to offer. But you can't do that without having an understanding of how communication works. So I believe the Carson Scholars Program here at the U of A helps graduate students bridge that gap and take on the many difficult layers of science communication that come starting at your graduate studies. So my name's Liz Kelly, and I'm the program coordinator of the UA Carson Scholars Program.
Hi, my name is Michael, and I want to talk about the importance of keeping an open mind when conducting scientific research. Now, when I was a kid, I wanted to know why the Earth was the only planet in our solar system with life. But before we can understand that, we first have to know how the Earth formed to begin with. I would love to go back in time and watch the Earth form, but that's just not possible. The only thing I can do is look for planets that are still forming around other stars, stars that are much younger than our sun. Now, when I decided I wanted to become an astronomer in 2011, these planets were still too small and too far away for us to be able to see. And unfortunately, that's still true today. But in the last 5 years, it's now finally possible for telescopes to take detailed pictures of the giant planet-forming disks around young stars. Now, some of the disks we've observed have unusual appearances that other astronomers claim are because there are planets in these disks. Now, 3 people, myself, my advisor, and a postdoc, decided to study where the planets in these disks would end up after they formed. But we ran into a problem. We were checking to see if our simulations made sense when we realized they weren't actually that realistic. We decided to run simulations that were more realistic and discovered that disks with planets in them wouldn't look like those telescope images we were trying to study. They would look like this instead. We submitted our results, and a few months later, someone came to me and my advisors and told us they had discovered a new image of a disk that looked just like the ones from our simulations. So we helped that person find evidence that there was a planet in the disk they were studying, even though we started out working on a project that was totally different. That's not the end of the story. We want to do more than just find planets forming around other stars. We want to use those planets to learn more about how planets form and what happens next. Things I was trying to study in my original project. Now, there are a lot of unsolved problems. It's okay if we don't know the answers to all of them or even which direction to take. Following a logical scientific method will guide us to learn more about other planets, the Earth, and the world that we live in. Thank you.
At some point in all of our lives, in some way, I think we all want to change the world. We want to leave the world a better place. But how do we do this? I've pondered this question for a long time. I've pondered this question as Nancy Peterson, resident of planet Earth. And I've pondered this question because the job I have here at the U of A, working to bring the university and community together to solve the world's most wicked problems, persistent problems like poverty and climate change. So my question to you today is, could changing the world be as simple as through a single voice or a single story? So yes, I wanted to change the world. In college, I worked for the National Park Service in varied places like the dry depths of Grand Canyon to the snowy slopes of Mount Rainier. I studied geology and hydrology, and I set off on a crusade, an environmental crusade to clean everything up, the soil, the water, the air. After about 25 years of doing this, I started to work on a landfill expansion project for the city's Seoul landfill, where you put your trash. As part of the project, we had to relocate 22 families. We would interview the families and then relocate them to suitable housing. But yes, the optics of moving 22 families, possibly evicting them if they didn't want to go, for a landfill wasn't great. And so I prepared myself for the upcoming storm. When the reporter from the Daily Star came to my office to interview me about the project, I knew it was going to be the cover story. I knew I needed to choose my words very carefully because, after all the quotes would be attributed to me. But when she arrived, she was actually relaxed, friendly. She said, yes, in preparing for the story, I was out to get blood, your blood. But then the editor came to me and said, where do you think your trash goes? And she realized she was part of the problem. Well, the night of the public meeting arrived, and we met in a local elementary school cafeteria. It was crowded. Step by step, we explained how the relocation process was going to work and why it was needed. As you can imagine, the people were angry, frustrated, confused. But it was for the greater good. As I was preparing to leave, an older gentleman came up to me and he said, you know, as long as the landfill has been here, I've lived here. It's been here since the 1940s. I'm now in my 80s, and I am too old and too tired to move. I just want to spend my days here in my home. I went home to my house, a house that wasn't about to be bulldozed, and I couldn't sleep at all. I thought about the reporter for the Daily Star and how she changed her mind, and I thought, I'm changing my mind. So the next day, I went into my boss's office. I just blurted it all out. We have to do a complete redesign. We need to rethink this whole thing. Or at least, let's take 21 houses but leave the old man's house. You know, I don't think my boss even looked up from what he was doing before he said to me, you're crazy. It's too late. It would cost too much. It would take too much time. So when this job came up, the job working for the Agnese Nelms Haury Program in Environment and Social Justice, I was so excited. I thought, wow, environmental justice, social justice, to promote both, to work on both at the same time. So now I get to encourage collaborations between the university and community. I get to encourage them to tell their stories and to listen to each other. Because I don't think we can solve the world's problems, those wicked problems, until we do this. So I hope you all are enjoying the stories we're telling today, and I hope you may hear a voice that shakes your world. But don't be surprised if it comes in the voice of an old man who once lived near a landfill in what seemed like a rundown house.
All right. So I'm Nicole Eshelman, and my story begins from where I grew up. So I grew up in a very small rural town in south central Pennsylvania. And growing up in a small town, you don't come across many scientists every day. So my idea of what a scientist was essentially kind of the professional careers, doctors, pharmacists, dentists. And I don't think I was alone in this thought. I can remember a time when I was in my high school biology 2 class, and our professor asked us what we wanted to get out of this class. And 90% of the students raised their hand and said, we just want the information so we can take the MCAT and get into medical school. The other 10% of us feebly raised our hand and was like, we just want to go to college, we like science, with a career goal for some of us not really known. So I ended up going to college, and I first thought, maybe I will go to college to become a pharmacist, as long as I can pass chemistry. So my freshman year came and passed, and I really enjoyed chemistry. And thinking about what a pharmacist would do, I wasn't sure that pharmacy would encompass my love of what I loved about chemistry. So I moved on, and I decided, okay, I will be a medical doctor. I could do this. But that dream was very quickly dashed when I realized that, 1, I really can't handle blood and gore, and 2, the mere picture of a cadaver on a screen in our physiology class left me nauseous. So I could not imagine having to work with that in medical school up front and close. So after that, I was kind of feeling unsure about what I would do with my degree in biology until I heard someone talk about a program, REU, which is Research Experience for Undergrads, which pairs small undergrad institutes like the one I was at with larger research institutes to give students opportunities to conduct research. So I jumped at the chance at this, and I was lucky enough to be able to participate in a summer internship at the University of Kentucky. And I fell in love with research. I loved the solving puzzles of everything. I loved that every day you're learning something new, discovering something that no one else has ever done. I loved trying to fit what you have discovered into a bigger picture, what other people have discovered. And so this led me to applying to graduate school. 1, because I did want to do more research because I really loved it. But 2, I also wanted to put myself into a position where I could use my experiences to help others understand the complexity and the diversity that there is within the sciences. And so that when students are asked in a classroom what they want to do with their science passion, they don't just have to think that the only option is a medical degree, and that they understand there's so much more to what science can be.
I never thought that I'd get a chance to see one of the strangest places in North America. But here I was. I was getting ready to go out and check it out. My name's Scott Bonar. I'm a professor of fisheries. And my subjects don't live on the bottom of the Marianas Trench, going down in a submarine down to the blackened depths to see them swimming around. I don't study animals that live in the Frank Church Wilderness and a river of no return that go up through the rushing waters of the Pacific Northwest. I don't study the colorful fishes on the tropical reefs. I study fishes on the very edge of the existence, in the desert. And so this is my chance to see one of those species that lived at the very edges of the existence. So I had a chance to get my graduate student, and we went down into Death Valley. We're going to do some underwater filming in Death Valley, but it was a place that was 9 miles out on the flats. And this was a time of year when it was extremely hot. And so we suited up, but not with the scuba tanks and things like that that you might use on a tropical reef. We suited up with enough water to make the distance. Because there, walking across the desert, water is air in your oxygen tank. And if you overwalk your water, that's as bad as running out of air underwater. So we went across the desert flats and the Devil's Golf Course formations, trying to work our way through to this little spring that we had heard that was out in the desert where some of these rare fishes lived. And we hiked and we hiked, and we could see the water go down and down in our tanks to get to this place. We found where it should be on the map, and the spring wasn't there. Here we were 9 miles out from our cars. We looked around and looked around some more, knowing the water was limiting us. But finally, in the distance, we saw this little spring. We walked closer, we saw a beautiful salt rim pool with a salt rime all around it, very clear water. And we looked in the depths of the pool, and we could see these colorful little animals swimming around in there, these fishes dancing around on the bottom of the pool, an own separate little universe in this vast sea of desert. And that right there made me realize how fragile life is, how special an isolated population it is. And it made me think about the world and how special what we have is here and how we need to protect it in this vast expanse of space. There really was no difference. And so I hope that other people get the opportunity to see things like this, and it makes them know how special our planet is and how we need to protect it.
Well, I don't know about all of you, but I felt like I really understood more what everyone does and why they're passionate about it. It really helped me to connect with the science that you're all doing and the work in general that you're all doing. So, if we have does anybody have any questions perhaps for anyone? Does anyone want food? There's food up there. Oh, I see a hand over there.
Okay, no, I agree with everything. It was awesome.
Oh, great. Well, I think we should all clap again and say thank you to all the presenters. They were really wonderful. And I want to thank you all for coming to the workshop. I hope that you found it well worth your while. I think you'll be wonderful communicators for all that we do in this community and at the university as you go out and talk to other people. And make some of those people the people who might want to support this and send other people next year. Always put that plug in. I also want to thank Erin for organizing all of this. And of course Nancy and Aram for all the work they do. Liz, I think, has left, but all the people at IE as well. Thank you all for coming. I hope we do this more frequently and that you'll get other opportunities to practice. And if we can help in any way, send us some feedback and let us know what else we can do. And we'll all go out and communicate and solve those wicked problems. All right, thanks everybody.